and welcome. You're watching QTV and you're watching the Week in Review. I'm Are Darami, and opposite me I have a Momodu, but not Momodu Mboj. I have Momodu Gajaga. Mr. Gajaga, welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And thanks for being here. And regular viewers will see we have Lamindi Sonko doing the signing. The program is called The Week in Review for a very good reason. We take 10 big stories from the week and we go through them in some detail. It's conversation and we kind of kick around. Some we spend a bit longer on than others, and we try and make it varied. How varied? Look at this. Women's political participation in the Gambia. We look at that. Pink October, which is now recognized globally, mainly giving an emphasis and putting an emphasis on breast cancer. What's happening with that here in the Gambia? How are we commemorating the month? Also, Gambia, we look at the basic education certificate results. They're just out. Interesting reading and viewing they make. Also, the importance of banking, financial literacy. The Gambia Bankers Association have gone to schools to try and teach them about financial literacy. And first archaeological dig or excavations at Kabu Kansala. And we also have a football story. I couldn't bring Mr. Gajaga here and not have a football story. We look at Gambia's squad for the upcoming AFCON games. So these are some of the stories we'll be dealing with on this week's program. So let's get things started, shall we? First up, we look at, this comes up time and time again, about the lack of women's political participation and leadership here in the Gambia. It's among the worst in Africa, and thus probably among the worst in the world. What's being done about it, I hear you say. Have a look, have a listen.
The reason why we are having this training, this is like a TOT, a train of trainers for the thematic working group, so that they can go out, advocate for more women political participation, and also for women to be taking part in decision-making process. They will be taken through on the lobbying techniques, how to do lobbying, both at the political party level and also at the national level.
Mr. Gajaga, we hear that and we're smiling, you and I, because we hear this is a training of trainers to get women involved. Now, all the political parties, they have women's wings, they have female wings, but when it comes to women having the sort of positions in the higher echelons of the parties, for almost all of them, it's pretty poor, isn't it?
Most definitely. If you look at the percentages, would tell you, even in our National Assembly, the representation of women quite very low.
Yeah, we've got 5 women there.
Exactly.
2 of whom are nominated.
Yeah. And when it comes to the political parties also that we have in the country, yes, there are women representation in the top echelons, but not much, compared to the male. And if you look at those numbers and you look at how women participate in politics in terms of following, especially supporting the male,
they are the biggest
voting, they're the biggest numbers when it comes to voting.
Yeah.
So I think there should be that quota system that needs to be respected. Well, civil society organizations have been advocating for it. You also have groups who kind of like, if you want, you can call them feminists, who have been advocating for women to at least have a better representation in political offices, political parties, and as well as when it comes to the decision-making aspect of it, because that's where we want to see women in that category, not as always following, basically trying to get in male votes and all of that to get them in the positions.
Well, you're right. I mean, and as you rightly said there, we see them in all these other positions, but when it comes to the crucial decision-making, they're lacking. Now, we're talking here about training of trainers. I don't know how many of these we've covered on QTV since I've been here, but how do we break this cycle and have a breakthrough where we can go from talking, from having seminars, from having workshops and conferences, to actually, how do we break through to the society to say, this is something that needs to change? How do we do that?
Well, there have been lots of advocacy and awareness, and when it comes to training, there are no shortages of them. You and I know, like you mentioned, we've covered several of these. So something is not happening somewhere, is either not sinking. Is it because there are fewer women who are interested in political leadership positions? Is it because of the patriarchal system that we have in the
I
country.
was going to pick
Yes,
on that.
if it comes to male thinking that, okay, women, when it comes to representation and decision making, it should be a male thing first, and then women could come in as a backup to support.
Yeah.
Well, I think these are things that really needs to change, and for it to get to that level, a lot has to be kind of done radically and practically as well. It's not only about talk, because that's what we've been seeing with all the workshops, with all the capacity buildings that we've covered before. Nothing seemed to change, or little has changed.
Yes, I mean, we have, when I go to the colleges and I go to the schools, occasionally I meet young women who are quite articulate, and some of them have expressed, but it almost seems as if there's an unstated desire by the men not to allow them in these positions, because a lot of these positions are mainly held by men, and they don't want to kind of open the door, the crack in the door, and to let them in. And this is, if they come in, they'll take over or whatever. It's not about taking over, it's about equal participation.
Equal participation, and for me, I don't believe in the sense of, okay, let's just give women a pass to political decision. If they come and compete with their male counterparts and they've proven competent enough to hold certain positions, my friend, males should support them, the men should support them, and making sure that, that happens rather than dragging their feet. I feel it kind of insecurity, sort of. Yes, because if a woman who has the education, has the charisma, has the leadership qualities, should be vying for a particular position, and you as men trying as much as possible to kind of set up a barrier, sort of to block the person from getting to that position, I would see it as insecurity.
And I have to say, I grew up in Sierra Leone, and when I came here, one of the things that surprised me was that during Ramadan, the women get half a day to do what? To go home and cook. And so it's a kind of unconscious bias that's there. Nobody says, the men can go and cook. It's, let the women go home and cook, so that, when it's iftar, the food is ready. And that's kind of part of the thing that we're dealing with here. This kind of casual way, you could almost call it casual sexism, that is part and parcel. We can call it patriarchy if we want to dress it up. But essentially it's the same sort of thing, where we've kind of assigned gender roles, and somehow we don't think the gender roles should include decision making at the highest levels of our political discourse.
And absolutely, that's where the change needs to be done. You design certain things and say, okay, specifically these are meant for women, and men, of course, has to be in control somehow.
Always.
For me, definitely overall, is insecurity in a kind of a way.
Sure, but thank you for that, and I suspect Mr. Gajaga will be having many more of these conferences and seminars before there's a change, but let's hope there will be a change. Well, thank you for that. And story number 2, serious one, Pink October. Every year now, October is recognized as Pink October to raise awareness of breast cancer. There are loads and loads of initiatives happening across the Gambia, such as this one.
In sub-Saharan Africa, prevention and treatment of breast cancer is a pressing health issue. In most high-income countries, breast cancer survival rates after 5 years of diagnosis are at 90%, as compared to 40% in sub-Saharan Africa. Health experts attribute this to inadequate breast cancer care and late-stage diagnosis of the disease. The Gambia has taken significant steps in cancer treatment.
The most common way of breast cancer showing is a lump. It's a lump in the breast that was not there before. And if women are feeling their breast every day, then if there is a lump there, they will notice that lump. But if you notice that lump, you should not leave it there alone. So if you leave it there, it will grow and grow and grow until it ulcerates, until it starts smelling. Unfortunately for us in the Gambia, a lot of women come at that stage.
We heard Dr. Jah there. Before anybody accuses me, I will hold my hand up here and say that one of the reasons why I wanted this in the program is because it's a serious matter. Secondly, I'm a trustee of a cancer charity that was named after a cousin of ours, who Verna Iskandri Johnson, who died because of breast cancer. And we heard those statistics quite stark, 90% to 40%. 90% in the developed world. 40% in the Gambia and much of the developing world. And a lot of it is because women are scared to go to doctors. And also we have this thing we discuss in the office, when people get sick here, they don't go to a doctor, they go to a pharmacist, they go to a chemist. How do we advocate for women? We heard Dr. Jah say, if you feel a lump, go and get it checked. But how do we advocate to get this change so that we hit that 90% or more in terms of recovery rate?
A lot of people are guilty of not getting medical attention when it needed most.
Yeah.
Early diagnosis helps a lot.
Sure.
Getting to visit a doctor for screening, if you know something is wrong with you, even not with cancer. But when it comes to breast cancer, this is a very serious matter.
Sure.
The statistics would tell you that the survival rate are quite very few. But if you detect it early,
you present early,
and
then
of course you seek medication for it, and you've seen a doctor, obviously the chances of you surviving and even recovering from it are very good, rather than you wait until the late stage, where Dr. Jah was mentioning that. And that seems to happen to a lot of people, especially in this country. People wait until the last minute when you think, basically, this is just too much. That's the time you would get to it.
Well, this is it. And I won't reveal who, but whilst that story was on during the news, as usual, I'm in the office watching the news. One of our colleagues was sitting next to me, and she said, I'm scared to go. And I said, well, just listen to what Dr. Jah says. If you present early and they catch it early, you've got a 90% survival rate in the West, in much of the West. I said, if it goes late, if you present late, it's 40% survival rate. I said, and look at the things he said about what happens when it worsens. I said, what would you rather prefer? Catch it early and cure it, or go by the time it's too late?
And this takes me to just last week. I was speaking to a female doctor about somebody that I know very well, very close to me, who is feeling some lump in her breast.
Right.
And then when I asked the female doctor about what can she do, she said the best thing for her right now, it might just be a normal breast pain, but let her go to the doctor.
Take a chance.
Yes, exactly, and do the screening and maybe do a scan and know what is really wrong with her. And it was right to realize that it was just a normal breast pain, and then she was giving medication. If that wasn't the case, he could have definitely go on and then maybe suffer.
Could have been something more serious. Absolutely. Now, we've heard about Dr. Jah, and one of the reasons he came was they have C3G Gambia, which has support from Q Group, and they've been going around. Then they've been doing free screening. I mean, I think they expect to screen about 600 women. Really? It might sound a lot, but that's a drop in the ocean for the number of women that need to be screened. And I'm kind of agonizing over this because I'm thinking, Ministry of Health, what's the kind of campaign that you're putting on to kind of get people to go and get screened? Maybe it's too early into Pink October, but I expect, if we are serious about it, I expect to be bombarded with adverts in every local language, not just in English, saying to people, go and get screened. It might save your life, but I've not heard any.
That
maybe
should
I've just
be
missed
the advocacy right now.
Maybe I've missed them.
And it should be led by, like you said, the Ministry of Health, through their advocacy programs, through maybe radio sensitization, using the media, whether it's print, electronic.
Link up with GSM companies.
Exactly.
Get them to send to your, people's phone numbers. Even if you get it and you're not a woman, but you know a woman, we all know women. Say to your sister, your mother, whomever, go and get checked. I've just seen a message here saying that there's screening happening at so-and-so, or this is Pink October. They're trying to raise awareness of the, the kind of importance of getting screened. Go and get it done. Those are the methods they use in other countries.
Absolutely. And especially doing it in the local languages in which people understand much, and that is what is going to translate into a lot of people. The catchment should be very wide. It should be countrywide. Everybody should be part
Every
of
time
this.
if you're in a commercial vehicle and they switch on the radio, you should be able to hear it in Mandinka, Fula, Wolof,
Jola, Sarahole, and all the languages.
All of them.
Course,
and then you capture everybody. And then honestly, those rates, but if we don't do that, and we're depending on the likes of C3G and others, we've had the Army, ECOMIG, they're doing some as well. We're not really, we're just scratching the surface. Exactly.
They will just reach a fraction of the people
yeah.
who most definitely need this screening. And I think the wider it gets,
yeah.
the better in terms of our health advocacy, and also helps in the prevention of breast cancer or the treatment of it.
This is it. Thank you for that. So yes, you heard Mr. Gajaga, the better it gets in terms of the treatment and the prevention. It's true. It's not rocket science exactly. Well, thank you for that, Mr. Gaj. Now, I know you are a father of children, and so like many parents, even if you don't have a child in grade 9, you are probably hanging on the results and waiting for them. The results were slightly delayed, and eventually they were released and made for interesting viewing and interesting results. Have a look and have a listen.
We want to appreciate the comments about the release or the delay of the 2024 Gabeke examination result by the general public. That shows that people are interested in the welfare of their children. That shows that people are interested in education. The results were not delayed in any way because the ministry owes the West African Examination Council. No.
33 of them, which accounts for 38% of the total, are from the public schools, and 55, which is 62%, are from the private schools.
Now, I have to smile there because Louis Moses Mendy might end up getting a job as a diplomat because he didn't tell us why they were delayed. And there'd been consternation because the importance of this is if your child sat the exam and they didn't get their results to show, they could not go to grade 10. So there was a great deal of importance to this. And yet we were told the rumor had been, well, the best way to kill the rumor is tell us why they were delayed. Don't just say they were not delayed because we owed money. Well, why the heck were they delayed? So that was one thing. As I said, for the parents, this was quite an uncertain time, wasn't it? Because, they were busy trying to make plans for their children to go, to the next secondary school, and yet they had no results to take forward with them. And
that's the case because it's September already, schools resume, and you're expecting your child to
go to their new school.
And to get to a new school, obviously, you would have to produce the results, and that results, if they are delayed, that affects that process. So looking at that and talking about the permanent secretary there, Louis Moses Mendy, yes, you've said delayed, but the reason why it was delayed, you haven't told us that, and this will sparkle the rumor.
Of course.
It continues.
I hope Louis is watching and he will come in on
obviously.
On Monday
so I think there needs to be clarifications in that. But if you look at the overall trajectory of the results in terms of percentages of pass rates,
and grade 6,
which as well,
the top
aggregate 6,
aggregate 6.
Those that got aggregate 6, the number says it doubled. Which is quite good. And the number of private schools,
I was
astonishing.
I was dreading coming to that because 62% of those that passed were private schools. Now, I don't want to embarrass the Ministry of Basic Education, but the figures they gave, they said 38% from public schools and 63% from private schools. Now, if you add those two, you get 101%. So obviously something's wrong there. So in our report, we tweaked it to say 62% and 38% because that is 100%. But the gap is wide. And this is something I've commented on before. When I came in 2018 and we did an education conference, when I went to the private schools and I went to the public schools, as they call it, the government runs one, the difference was quite pronounced in terms of the confidence, the articulation of the children, and now in the results. The top range, 62% from the private schools, 38% from
without giving an advert or a free pass to any school, but
so don't. But,
yes.
but you can mention
exactly.
If
So some of these schools, like Methodist Academy,
Mm.
Mansa Koli, and then Presentation of Mary Basics, Cycle School,
Yes.
Anne Marie as well.
Right.
Yes, these are schools where when you get there, the teachers that they have are quite experienced, and then not only that, the kind of teaching
Right.
is completely different from
Right.
when you get into public schools.
Right.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that needs improvement in public schools, and a lot of investment is needed as well.
This is it.
And this has to do with also teacher retention.
Right.
Some of the best teachers would prefer going to a private school rather than to a public school because of the margin of the pay difference and also some benefits that comes with that.
Right.
So I think these are quite factors as well.
Of course, and of course we're talking about this. October 5th is World Teachers' Day, when we're meant to be celebrating and commemorating the achievements of teachers. And we've seen, I mean, in the Gambia back in February of this year, if I'm not mistaken, we had the National Teachers Award, and we've had teachers from the Gambia going to study TVET, teaching in China. We had Danish teachers come and bring some of their skills and knowledge to link up with teachers here. So the teaching profession is good, but this gap, and the reason I mentioned the 2018 thing is because at that one of the meetings about that conference that we were trying to, which we we did put on in 2018. I said at one of the meetings, I said, if we don't address this widening gap, 10, 15 years from now, you would walk into a building, whether it's in government or it's in the private sector, and everybody who is the boss went to a private school, and everybody who's not went to a public school, because of how stark the difference was that I had seen. And it is a concern. We don't want that kind of unequal society which develops at that young age and just cascades throughout one's life.
Yeah, most definitely. That seems to be the trend so far. And some of the schools, like I said previously, when it comes to the private ones, they even have these incentives where they link up with schools in Europe where their teachers go there for some time, exchange visit programs. Those teachers come here and then they would go there to gather some experience, first-hand experience as well. So these are things that are not obviously available in the public schools.
Sure.
And you could see the difference there, and it would have a ripple effect on the results of the students who went through these examinations. Gabeke is one of them.
Yeah, sure. So I'm not sure what the solution is. I don't have it. I don't pretend to have it. But I think it is a concern, and one I think we should pay particular attention to, because we need to close that gap. We need to close that gap.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for that. And now on to story number 4. And this one, you might hear a familiar voice in this story. Gambia Bankers Association launched an initiative to visit several schools. Why? I won't spoil it for you. Listen to this.
The Gambia Bankers Association awareness campaign engaged students in discussions about banking fundamentals, the importance of saving, responsible borrowing, financial planning, and the role of banks in the economy. The initiative kicked off at the Gambia Senior Secondary School, where Aissatou Jawara, the president of the association, addressed students about the significance of understanding the banking sector.
An initiative that we at the Bankers Association believe will have a profound impact on the future of our beloved country, the Gambia. As we embark on this series of school visits to promote banking awareness, we do so with a shared vision to equip the next generation with the knowledge and skills necessary to navigate the financial landscape of the modern world.
I keep going on about the kind of stark difference that you find. I was asked to go and speak at a particular school here in the Gambia, and I'm not sure how the conversation got around to it, but I asked by a show of hands which of them had a bank account, and nobody put their hand up. I was astonished. Having come from England, had I done that, maybe 80 or 90% of the hands would have gone up. You covered the story, and I mentioned at the top of the show that it's about financial literacy financial literacy, trying to teach our children about how to handle money, how to start a bank account, how to manage a bank account. You were there. What kind of sense did you get of this thing, and is it a good thing?
Yes, I think it's a good thing. I'm a classical example. I got my first bank account after high school. Okay, so can you imagine throughout my days in school up to grade 12,
Sure.
I didn't have a bank account at the time. So I think getting to the schools, getting them this awareness about banking, how does the banking sector work,
Right.
and as well as that financial discipline sort
Yeah,
of.
quite.
You get money, however little you might think it is.
Some,
You keep
spend
some,
some.
save some,
Yeah.
and in saving that some, there is this old habit of keeping money in your house.
Yeah.
If your house caught fire,
Sure.
if some lunatics, some burglars come in to break into your house and then steal the money,
Sure.
you're the loser at the end of the day. So
Sure.
that old-fashioned thing. So I think the banking sector would help in that. And as
Sure.
school children, when you start things like that, it might help you when it comes to your financial discipline,
Well,
how you
well,
spend
indeed.
money, and then how you save. as well.
And particularly because now we're used to mobile money, Q money and other types, and people transact quite widely. I mean, so in a way they are fortunate because you can go and you can spend money without ever having to put your hand in your pocket. You buy things
Yeah.
because everywhere you go, they accept a kind of form of mobile money. So that is, but again, sometimes that is a disadvantage because you're not physically here and seeing it disappear. You kind of spend it
And spend it, yeah.
more freely,
Freely, yes.
and before you know it, it's gone. So
It's
the
gone.
discipline, the D word that you mentioned, is crucial.
Absolutely, it's crucial. And some of the question that they keep asking is when it comes to banks in the Gambia, how they operate, how can you access loan to finance kind of a business and all of that. So some of those details we're giving. And for some of them, especially who are doing commerce, they think with this awareness, it would kind of help them, lead them to, after finishing their courses, to get and do some accounting and banking courses,
Sure.
and eventually would prepare them well to get into the banking job and the banking sector as well.
Indeed, and that's why the various things that I liked about the story that you did was that it showed different aspects of it, because apparently they talked to the young students there about what it takes to get into the banking sector as somebody who's working there, but also it taught them about discipline,
Yeah.
about managing your money well.
And
when
talking
you
about
get
that
it.
discipline, it brings me to a point, because I engaged one of the officials who was doing this.
With the GBA?
With the GBA.
Uh-huh.
The person says to me, and even told the students as well, when it comes to the banking sector, a lot has changed, where some of the bankers, some tellers, there was a point where somebody kind of tried to transfer a lot of money
Yeah.
to his own personal
Right.
account, and then try to run away with it. He said they have multiple security measures and systems.
Because of digitization.
Digitization.
Mainly.
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
secondly,
Yes.
before you even get that banking job, they will make sure that you are vetted.
Yes. Of
So
course.
once you have a conviction or a criminal whatever in your CV prior, it means you can never get a job in the bank in the
because
Gambia.
you're not trustworthy.
Yeah, because you're not trustworthy.
Yeah.
You already had a case before, and
Sure.
it will be in the system. So that's going to haunt you for the rest of your life.
This is it.
Yeah. So those are some of the things. It's kind of raised the alarm, but also prepares these
Sure.
people.
And having attended it in the professional capacity, what were your takeaways in terms of, these are things that I need to teach my own children as they progress through life? What did you take away from on a personal level?
Yes, for me, I think when it comes to the issue of banking and that financial discipline, if you started early, it would rather help rather than until
If
when
it's
you
late, yeah,
you
right.
kind of thinking, okay, I have to be rich in order to start banking. I have to be rich in order
but-
to start saving or something like that. You don't need to get rich.
Sure.
The little that you have, you can manage it.
Sure.
Manage it to make sure that it is well spent, and as well as always save for a rainy day. I think that's a takeaway that I will take from this.
A good takeaway. Thank you for that. And now a very different story. Some archaeologists are here, and they're working with historians mainly I paused there because I was going to say Gambian archaeologists, but in fact it turns out we don't have any. And they've made some interesting discoveries at Kabu Kansala. Have a look.
Kabu Kansala was a cultural and political hub, and these discoveries highlight its vital role in regional dynamics. After 2 years of extensive exploration, researchers presented a collection of artifacts, including pottery remains and tools dating back centuries. These items tell a story of trade, culture, and innovation. Dr. Sirio Canos Done, the lead archaeologist from the Spanish National Research Council, emphasized the importance of the findings.
We put together a team to excavate Kansala and find out how big is the site, what are the important parts, how old is it, and confirm some of the elements of the oral tradition. We've confirmed a lot of what the oral tradition said is actually true. So the gunpowder house of Jankewali, the one that was supposedly blew up, the Turubang, we've confirmed that it is indeed a gunpowder house and that it probably did explode.
The history of Cabo clearly reflects the Manding people's mastery of administration. The empire extended from the present-day Guinea-Bissau to parts of northern Senegal and the Gambia.
So Guinea-Bissau, Senegal, the Gambia, Kabu Kansala, we smiled there when they talked about the gunpowder because we've all heard the oral tales, but excavation makes it real because they can find the site and there will be still particles of what was there, and that's the beauty of it.
As a kid growing up from a cassette player, these are stories that I had from oral historians.
Sure.
But when you go to a point, you have archaeologists who would go in and dig and see some of these artifacts and can relate it to what we've been told before.
Sure.
I think tells quite a story. And, you know, the people that they're talking about here, Mama Jankewali, Kabu Kansala as well. Yes, at some point, I thought when they said Kabu, it only means maybe a part of Gambia and Guinea-Bissau. But later I realized that, you know, it extends to Senegal, the Casamance area around. And,
all along the coast.
You know, it really makes it a very interesting history and also quite a story as well. The people who were involved, the Jankewali that they're talking about, quite a figure at the time.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, and, you know, it extends the impression of the Manding Empire at the time, and also when it comes to the Kabu Empire, at this part of West Africa, northern Senegal, we have parts of Gambia, and also Guinea-Bissau. I think the artifacts really, I would have wished to see them in person. I find a way to visit the National Center for Arts and Culture.
I think you and I both, and the reason I say this is because those who know me know that this very much is my thing, the kind of history.
History, yes.
And the preservation of the history, but also in the way that it tells a story. Because sometimes, yes, we have the oral tradition, but they've said that some of the artifacts they found were obviously from Europe, which told you that they'd traded with these people. These people had bought something from them,
yes.
Either bought it through barter or whatever, but there were exchanges of trade. So, you know, again, I mentioned when we discussed it on This Morning that, you know, when I went to museums in Portugal and I found ivory tusks that were maybe the length of what I've just done with my arms from Sierra Leone, from the 15th century. I was shocked. Brilliant, intricately carved, and these were carved. And what was interesting, many of them were showing kind of either Christian things, and I thought, why was this? And it turns out that some of the sailors who came from Portugal would come with a picture and say to the person who was doing the carving, "Can you carve me this?"
Carve me this,
on the elephant tusk, and then they would take it back. And so there was that exchange. And similarly in Kabu Kansala, these are some of the stories that are being revealed with this dig. And again, I said at the top there that yes, it's good to have these people come, but we need our own. And in fact, that is what is happening. Some Gambians are now training to become archaeologists. So when the foreign archaeologists have gone, we can do our own archaeological digs and discover things ourselves.
Exactly. We've always been advocating for telling your own story rather than others telling about your story, because it's either they would left out something. But if it is told about yourself, basically, I think you would do a much better job.
We know,
exactly.
We know the cliche. If you tell me about yourself and I went and told somebody, it wouldn't be the same as if you told that somebody about yourself.
Exactly.
So absolutely. But thank you for that, Mr. Gaj. And that takes us to the midpoint, and we will take a break. And after this commercial break, we'll have 5 more stories. Don't go away.
Introducing the Q-Smart and Q-Smart Plus, where innovation meets affordability. Capture life's precious moments with stunning clarity thanks to our high-resolution cameras. Enjoy uninterrupted performance with a fast processor and a long-lasting battery that keeps up with your day. The Q-Smart offers a 5.9-inch immersive display, powerful performance, and an all-day battery life, all for just $3,400. Plus get an incredible bundle of 15 gigabytes of data, 120 minutes of talk time, and 300 SMS absolutely free. Upgrade to the Q-Smart Plus featuring a faster processor and extended battery life and a larger 6.5-inch screen for just $4,000. With it, you receive a massive 30 gigabytes of data, 300 SMS, and 120 minutes of talk time completely free. All bundles are spread across a 3-month period. Don't miss out. Get your Q-Smart or Q-Smart Plus from QCell today. Discover the best in quality and value right here in the Gambia. Available at all QCell customer care centers across the country. For more information, call 111. QCell Senior Boss. We innovate, others follow.
Hello and welcome back. You're watching QTV and you are watching the Week in Review. And if you're just joining us, well, you've missed 5 really good stories. But fear not, 5 cracking stories still to come. And across from me, not Mamadou Mboj this time, but Mr. Mamadou Gajaga. You've seen his face and you've heard his voice mainly as a sportsman, but he's a man of many interests. And thank you for your interjection so far, Mr. Gaj.
It's been a pleasure. Always feels great to be back here. I've only been here for over a year now.
Oh my word, we'll have to remedy that then. And we have Lamindi Sonko doing the signing. Well, I said we have 5 cracking stories still to go, so let's get cracking, shall we? Next up, National Assembly, they've just approved a deal with Saudi Arabia. What kind of deal, I hear you ask? Hey, I won't spoil it for you. This clip will tell you.
The agreement will also complement other efforts in creating employment opportunities for our people, especially the young ones. In this way, this agreement, when implemented, will contribute to the attainment of the 150,000 job target of the National Employment Policy and Action Plan 2022-2026. Honorable Speaker, I'm happy to inform this August Assembly of the establishment of a joint technical committee comprising representatives of the 2 governments for the implementation of the agreements.
The greatest thing that a nation can be proud of is your youthful population. In your youthful population, that's where you create jobs. Jobs in Saudi Arabia will never give us food self-sufficiency in the Gambia. We are looking at how are we going to stop importation of rice? That's how we are thinking as a government.
Mr. Gaj, a very particular reason for juxtapositioning those two. We heard the minister talk about this, and we'll come back to the kind of things we've heard, the horror stories we've heard about mainly our women working in these Arab countries. But the minister mentioned this 150,000 job pledge. Now, I think at the time it was said, many people thought it meant 150,000 jobs here in the Gambia. There have always been Gambians working abroad. So I'm not sure why this feeds into that. And of course, the National Assembly member took him to task over that. But if we go back to this whole thing, the reason why the governments have agreed is because we've heard, as I said, horror stories of mainly women working as housemaids and so on, and some terrible stories. We remember the time when some of them were pleading to be brought back when there was fighting in Lebanon and also in Syria. But this time it seems the governments are getting involved, and anybody who's an agent has to be properly accredited.
Yes, that's one bit of it. For government to government sign an agreement, they think that everything would be straight in terms of the agreement, because these are things which are going to be well documented, who gets what and why, what should happen. But if you look at the previous systems that we've seen before, they call it the kafala system, where you leave your country and there is an agent or kind of a company. Some agent.
Because they're not even, many, they're not accredited.
Or something like that.
To any organization.
Exactly. But most of them would claim they have a license to operate in that country, to do that kind of recruitment as well. So those experiences have been terrible. But this is government, and then it's went through the National Assembly. They've said they've signed this agreement. But there are fears, because in those countries how people are treated, without being racist or so, but how black people are treated and the experiences that people have previously would always ring a bell. So I don't know how they're going to work this out in terms of getting those employments, what sort of jobs are available, what are some of the agreements, and unless and until those details are provided, yes, I think I have a big issue with this. And the National Assembly member, Bakari Baji there, talking about having a food self-sufficiency, and then you need a youthful population to do that. That should be the thinking line, rather than
encouraging your
youths
to go and work,
the cream of your society, to go outside and then go work there.
Sure. But I think we're just encouraged by the fact that the government involved and the agents have to be properly vetted and sanctioned, and we've been told that they will. I guess time will tell, but thank you for that. Thank you. And now on to a health matter. Sometimes people are shocked at the figures for diabetes and hypertension in West Africa. They're pretty shocking, and they're pretty shocking here in the Gambia. Why is this? You've probably guessed, but if you haven't guessed already, this might tell you.
Diabetes and hypertension have become the new normal condition in our society, and most people know about someone with these conditions. Health officials are sounding the alarm as statistics indicate a rise in diabetes and high blood pressure among the population. However, inadequate health screenings further threatens the lives of most people who prefer visiting pharmacies for prescription drugs rather than having proper screening done by medical professionals.
These conditions were known to be elderly-related conditions, like they happen usually with the elderly. But now you could see young ones, people of my age, having these conditions. Why? Now it's something that maybe, people need to go into the drawing board and find the reasons why, but these conditions are becoming too rampant in the community. They are becoming too common, even within the young age. And this is not something that we should take light.
Mr. Gaj, when I watched this, I wanted to go out and exercise straight away, because they talked about, lack of activity contributing to this. But the scary thing is, and the reason we wanted it mentioned on the program, is because many more young people are now being diagnosed with this, diabetes and hypertension, and it's to do with unhealthy lifestyles mainly.
Yes, a lot of it is happening. Very scary if young people are getting disease that seems to be for the old people back then, or for people of kind of a certain age, maybe middle age, maybe you are in your 50s or getting close to your 60s as well. Yeah. But if you have young people in their 30s, young people in their mid-20s as well, suffering from hypertension and diabetes, that's quite worrying.
It's concerning.
It's concerning if you look at the health system of our country. And some of it has to do with lifestyle. One doctor described it to me as lifestyle diseases, because it's what you consume and how you take care of yourself is what results into hypertension, and most of the time diabetes as well, which is in fact even more worse, because it's the food intake that has to do with the diabetes, according to many medical experts.
That's right.
So lifestyle needs to change for the better, and also physical activity. It mentions that. So you need some physical activity. You don't need to go to the gym to be physically active.
And you don't need to run a mile or 2 miles.
Exactly. You can work.
Don't just sit around.
Yeah, don't just sit around and then, without doing much in terms of body movement as well.
Sure. So, please eat healthy, stay healthy, and if you in danger, change your lifestyle. Okay, thank you. And now story number 8. The Human Rights Commission has recently trained 50 prison officers. And why is the Human Rights Commission getting involved? This clip might tell you.
The aim of this capacity building forum is to enhance the officers' knowledge and understanding of fundamental human rights principles, provide information on the promotion and protection of human rights. Junde Drame, a commissioner at the Human Rights Commission, emphasized that the capacity building training is highly significant as it will enhance the skills of the prison officers.
People who are detained or imprisoned do not cease to be human beings, no matter how serious the crime of which they have been accused or convicted. The court of law or other judicial agency that dealt with their cases decreed that they should be deprived of their liberty, but not that they should forfeit.
Deprived of their liberty, but not of their humanity. But that is what we're always, not always, frequently guilty of in Africa. When people are prisoners, they get a pretty rough ride, don't they?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
This happens quite a lot. As a convicted person, somebody who's incarcerated, detained for a while in prisons, some officers would take the advantage of treating them anyhow,
yeah,
even though this might be few cases, but it does happen. And I think this quite rings a bell to say that yes, they might be convicted, yes, they might be detained by a court of law, a competent court of law, but at the end of the day, they're human beings.
Yeah, quite.
They are dignified people in terms of their humanity.
Yes.
Needs to be there, and you know, some of their rights needs to be respected as well.
Yes, because the court rightly says we will strip you of your liberty, but the court doesn't say we will strip you of your dignity or your humanity.
Humanity, absolutely.
And it is good that we're getting prisoners and we're prison officers, I beg your pardon, and we're saying to them, look, it's not for you to kind of take revenge on behalf of society or anybody else.
Exactly.
You have a job to do your job, your job does not include dehumanizing people.
People, yes.
Oh.
And even if these people have been accused or convicted of some of the most heinous crimes that you can think of, if the prison system or the prison rules say treat them well, treat them as human beings, treat them with dignity, obviously you should do that.
Yeah,
even maybe it's against your conscience to say, okay, somebody is a convicted murderer, the person needs to be treated anyhow because the person now been convicted of killing several people or whatsoever.
Sure.
But for you, your job is to ensure that, okay, the person's movement is restricted and, you know, goes to sleep at a particular time and things like that.
Yes.
But you cannot go as far as either, you know, abusing the person physically, maybe beating the person or kicking the person.
This is it.
You're not allowed to do that.
You're not. They serve their sentence, you do your job. End of the sentence, they might be released, you carry on doing your job.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. And now on to story number 9. Guinea, as in Guinea-Conakry. They recently celebrated 66 years of independence. And boy, I watched all 4 hours of it. It was quite interesting. Have a look, have a listen.
Fiery anti-colonial leader Sékou Touré. Touré's famous words, "We prefer poverty in liberty to riches in slavery," were a defiant rejection of continued French rule. This bold move not only inspired other African countries, it also shaped Guinea's future as a proud sovereign state. Sékou Touré's presidency, however, quickly turned into a repressive one. His government crushed dissent, jailing and executing political opponents in the name of African socialism. Despite dreams of economic self-sufficiency, Guinea's early years were marred by isolation and hardship, even as it remained a symbol of African resistance. Due to the country's isolation by France and much of the West, Touré turned to the Soviet Union and other Iron Curtain countries for help. After years of turmoil and instability, we can fast forward to 2021 and find Guinea in the grip of military rule. Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya seized power in a coup, ousting President Alpha Condé, who had controversially extended his rule through a constitutional change. Initially welcomed by some for ending Condé's authoritarian grip.
Well, they welcomed him initially, Mamadi Doumbouya, and he probably won't allow me into Guinea now because I refer to him as Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya. Of course, he was Colonel when he took over. He's now promoted himself to General Doumbouya. But I watched the proceedings. When I said 4 hours, it wasn't, the day went on longer than that, the celebrations. But the main celebrations were just a parade of military hardware. It looked as if they were preparing for World War III.
I saw some of those pictures and I am like, okay, I think my eyes kind of deceiving me with what I am seeing. Yes, I saw people in full military gear, you know, armored cars, and kind of showing military might.
Rocket launchers.
Rocket launchers, you know. Grenade launchers as well.
Exactly. So that was the 4-hour one. I mean, later on he had a big banquet where he invited people from civil society and the security sector. But when I was watching it live on YouTube, I was the only one who wasn't singing praises. So I typed in both English and in French saying, is this an independence celebration or a display of military hardware? Because that's what it looked like. And the reason I brought the story is because Mamadi Doumbouya, I'm willing to bet, I'm not a betting man, but I'd bet my last penny that he's not going to hand over power to any civilian unless he can contest the elections. I think he's become drunk with power.
That's obvious. That's what they do. Yeah. There's all military people in Africa. Maybe there could be exception, but I don't even think I can think or look back to say there was an exception. Somebody comes into power with the promise to say that, you know what, we came to change the system for the better. And after a while, you know, some people say we will go back to the barracks, but they never went back to the barracks.
If you saw Doumbouya and the way that people in the millions lined the streets and were singing his praises and waving his picture as well as the Guinean flag, that kind of adulation, if you give that up, you go back to what? To the barracks? There's no way he's going to do that. Right. And so I think the whole thing, everywhere you went, you saw his picture. You know, he's going to stay. But what a contrast. I'm old enough to remember Sékou Touré. In fact, there was an incident or time when my father went to Guinea to visit family, and because he was a government minister and Sékou Touré heard that he was in Guinea, he insisted that he had to stay at the presidential palace, but it meant my father's family couldn't then visit him. He had to go and visit them, and my father said, you know, I'm never going there again because, you know, I don't want to go through that nonsense of having to go and visit them, and you got all these presidential guards in tow. His family was scared.
Yes.
You know, so that was Sékou Touré, and now we have this kind of military junta, and Doumbouya is putting out lots and lots of infrastructure projects, and he always ends the video by saying, I want the Guinean people to know that I have my personal imprint on this project. That's not a guy who's going away.
Absolutely. Those are people who would stay in power, impose themselves on the people, and would do everything possible to get there. And they always have these flimsy excuses when they take power to say, yeah, things were not right, there was rampant corruption, there was abuse, there was, you know, all sorts of...
The same lyrics.
Yes, the same lyrics, all sorts of adjectives that they would use to describe how bad it was. And then when they come in, they in fact get it worse. They become more corrupt and things like that. So, well, Guinea has gone through a lot. With all the resources that they have, natural resources, especially bauxite. Yes, Guinea should have definitely passed the stage it is in terms of infrastructure and even human development in general.
Thank you. We will wait and see. But November is when we expect the announcement as to whether he's going to stand or not, or whether he's even going to allow elections. But thank you for that. Takes us to our last story, and one that you should be familiar with. The squad has just been announced for Gambia's next round of AFCON matches against Madagascar. Have a look, have a listen.
But we need to be cleaner around the penalty box. There's no doubt about that. You know, we're creating a lot of chances. You know, our passes into the final third, our box entries, our expected goals are all a lot higher than they've been over recent years. Defensively, we've got to tidy up on set pieces. But it's interesting because in the two camps we've done so far, it's been two different issues in set pieces. Because in the first camp, the issue was defending crosses, which we worked on a bit in the second camp in the short time, and actually that was not an issue at all from set pieces against Comoros or Tunisia from corners and from wide delivery free kicks. We were pretty comfortable.
Some young players like Mahmoudou Bajo and Abdoulaye Cisse, who are in fine form at their clubs, are yet to get a chance under McKinstry.
We don't have much time on this, but it's one we discuss, you and I, on Q Sports anyway. But just kind of general in a minute or so, your impressions of the squad and your expectations.
Well, there have been a new player added, Souley Camara. He plays for Racing Santander in the Spanish Segunda. That's the second division in Spain. And if you look at it also, the coach talks about the chances that they've created. But the execution rate,
created,
yes,
failure to convert, and conceding
very silly goals sometimes in set pieces. Excuse my language. In that, I think he has to improve. This double leg against Madagascar would definitely prove what type of a system he wants to play and whether his players can execute it. They should be able to learn from the mistakes of their past games against Tunisia and Comoros, the kind of goals that they've conceded, and improvements are expected, and I think I'm happy with the squad.
It's very rare to hear Gambian sports enthusiasts say, I'm happy with the squad. Usually we have a quibble or two. But on that note, I have to thank you, Mr. Gajaka, for joining us on this week's Week in Review. Thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure to be here, and I definitely enjoyed my time.
So did I. We enjoyed having you here. And just from Lamindi Sonko and from myself, until we come your way again next week, goodbye.